Hello all, welcome to another video on the news analysis of the Hindu newspaper. Today let's see what are the various important news from our exam point of view. So from past 2 days there was a news about Big Boss contestant who was wearing tiger's nail. So why was he taken to judicial custody? So let's see that. Under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, wearing or even displaying any animal parts is a punishable offense. So from our exam point of view, we need to know about the Wildlife Protection Act in detail. The Wildlife Protection Act was passed in the year 1972 and it provides a legal framework to protect various species of wild animals as well as plants and even to manage the habitats and control the trade in wild animals, plants and the products which are made from them. So because of this legal framework, presently the contestant who was wearing a tiger's nail, he was taken into the custody, and it has various schedules of the act. So before going through the schedules, let's see what are some of the various constitutional provisions for this Wildlife Protection Act. The 42nd Amendment Act that was passed in the year 1976, that passed the forest and protection of wild animals and birds from state to that of the concurrent list. When a provision is under the concurrent list, it even the center as well as state, they can pass laws under the provision. Then Article 51A of the Constitution, Article 51A talks about the fundamental duties for the citizens. So under Article 51A, Constitution provides for every citizen to protect as well as improve the natural environment, including the forest and wildlife. And under DPSP, Article 48A, that mandates the state to protect as well as improve the environment and safeguard the forest and wildlife. So let's see various schedules under this act. Under this act, Schedule 1 that covers endangered species which need rigorous protection. A person who hunts will be liable for harshest penalties under this schedule. Under this schedule, the species are prohibited to be hunted throughout India except when they are a threat to human life or in case of a disease which is beyond the recovery. And the examples of animals which are under Schedule 1 include black buck, snow leopard, Himalayan bear and Asiatic cheetah as well as tiger. Schedule 2, under the Schedule 2, the species here, they are accorded high protection with prohibition on their trade. Some animals under the schedule include the Assamese macaw, Himalayan black bear and Indian cobra. So next comes Schedule 3 and 4. In this schedule, the species that are included are which are not endangered, and here the species are prohibited for hunting, but here the penalties vary compared to the above two schedules. So examples of animals which are protected under Schedule 3 are cheetal, which is spotted deer, bharal or blue sheep, hyena as well as sambar, the deer. And the animals that are protected under Schedule 4, that include flamingo, falcons, kingfishers, magpie as well as others. The next one is the Schedule 5. The Schedule 5 includes the vermin. Vermin species are the ones which can be hunted and which actually causes destruction to plants and food. Thus these can be hunted. This includes animals such as common crows, fruit bats, rats as well as mice. Then comes the Schedule 6. The Schedule 6 is related to the protection of wild plants. This includes various regulations in cultivation of specified plant and restricts its possession, sale as well as transportation. So here, to cultivate a particular plant or to trade, prior permission of the competent authority is prerequisite. The plants under Schedule 6 include Bedom's cycad, blue vanda, red vanda, slipper orchids, and pitcher plant. So these are the various 6 schedules of Wildlife Protection Act that becomes very important for our exam. That talks about the recent glacial lake outburst flood that happened in the Sikkim. So let's understand what actually is a glacial lake outburst flood. So here is a figure that depicts a typical glacial lake. So here you can see the glacial, here you can see the glacier surface which is there on the Himalayan mountain, and this is the current lake. This lake is formed because of melting of this the glacier. So when the glacier retreats, the glacier retreat means when this glacier starts to melt, this forms a huge lake, a larger lake, and here is you can see a moraine. A moraine is nothing but the soil deposition that acts as a check dam or even a barrier for this lake. So thus when this moraine breaks down, the glacial lake which is formed that actually outbursts and leads to flood in the downward regions. So that forms a glacial lake outburst flood. So the recent cases of why the glacial lake outburst flood are increasing, it is because of increasing melting of glaciers. When there is increase in melting of glaciers, that forms a glacial lake, and when the moraine deposits they breaks down, that leads to flooding in the the downward regions. So here in the article, the author Safi Ahsan Rizvi, he talks about mitigating the tragedies in this Himalayan region. Before few months we have seen the sinking of Joshimath in Uttarakhand, and now the glacial lake outburst flood. Let's see what are the reasons for this and how we can actually mitigate these tragedies in the Himalayan region. The recent glacial lake outburst that happened in the Sikkim along Tista river is actually the evidence of climate change that actually inducing these glacial lake outburst floods. This was also reported in the journal known as the Nature. So according to this journal, this year, that is in the year 2023, around 90 million people across 30 countries they actually experienced these glacial lake outburst floods. There are certain natural causes for this GLOF, such as the heavy rainfall that also triggers a landslide, and that leads to a glacial lake outburst. And these landslide at the downstream, they even create the flash floods. Flash floods is nothing but it is the flooding of the land for a very short period, and there will be heavy rainfall during that time. This is a flash flood. So according to author, to mitigate such hazardous events, what we need is early warning systems. So a recent early warning system that was implemented in the South Lanak as well as Shakocho glacial lakes was actually a successful early warning system. So the author argues that such a system need to be implemented across various glacial lakes in the Himalayan region to mitigate any of the disasters like that which was happened along the Tista river. The another reason for this is the increasing warming up of the glaciers. When the glaciers are warming, that leads to glacial retreat, thereby increasing the load of the glacial lakes. Thus when the moraine actually breaks down, that leads to the glacial lake glacial lake floods. And the Himalayan region is actually very susceptible to various disasters such as hydrometeorological ones, tectonics, even the human induced hazards. Each of them actually requires the extensive set of monitoring, mitigation, the early warning strategies, and the process of the chain of glacial melting has been adequately mapped. But the issue is this multitude of glaciers as well as the temporal variation in the glacial recession. The retreat of glacier varies according to the time and space, that adds to difficulty in monitoring as well as estimation of the risk. That becomes more difficult to for estimating these GLOFs. Also, the data from National Remote Sensing Center's Glacial Lake Atlas of 2023 that points the three major river basins such as the Indus, Ganga as well as Brahmaputra. They are host to around 28,000 glacial lakes. Out of these, around 27% they are in India, whereas the rest lies outside India, and this region has witnessed catastrophic GLOF events in the past few decades. Also, author argues that there are many geotechnical solutions to mitigate the GLOFs, such as the channels for regulated discharge, drainage using pipes as well as pumps, spillway construction, and setting up of small catchment dams to cut the speed of this outflow. However, since the Himalayan region lies 5,000 meters above the mean sea level, it becomes a challenge such as inaccessibility, impossibilities in transporting as well as retaining excavation equipment, strong winds, and difficulties in sourcing the power and connectivity. This adds for the problem to excavate as well as discharge the excess of the water that is stored in the glacial lakes. Thus, because of these GLOFs, it leads to the high risk to the downstream communities who are actually unaware of such hazards, as well as what are the various causes for such hazards that increases loss of life as well as property and livelihood for the population who stay in the downstream. Thus, the author argues that along with the hydrometeorological as well as geophysical hazards that are rising in the recent times, we need to meet the development needs of these hill communities, as well as we need to mitigate the disasters. So thus what we need is we need to assimilate the government policy and practices, as well as the private investment. Therefore, author argues for a multidisciplinary effort, where the efforts are required from the National Disaster Management Authority as well as the Central Water Commission to come up with a comprehensive GLOF risk mitigation plan. So we need to map the places which are prone to GLOFs through remote sensing, and we need hydrodynamic assessment of the high risk lakes, as well as mapping water flow, height, as well as routing simulations using digital elevation models. Also, the National Disaster Management Authority that actually issued the guidelines in the year 2020 that provides states with a technical overview of hazard and risk zonation, as well as suggest strategies to monitor risk reduction as well as the mitigation. Thus, there is a need of a comprehensive GLOF risk mitigation plan that includes installation of monitoring and end-to-end early warning systems at high risk glacial lakes. So, for this there is a requirement of collaboration between governments, scientific institution who has to come together, and they will have to synergize for better planning to mitigate as well as prevent any such disasters, to ensure reducing the loss of life as well as the property, and to ensure a sustainable Himalayan region. And the next the article is related to the extreme weather events that have happened over the last 31 years that has caused a loss of around $3.8 trillion worldwide. So this you can quote in our GS3 as a report or even as an example. So according to this article, the 2023 was the warmest year in the last decade, as well as here is a report from Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations, which is titled as The Impact of Disaster on Agriculture and Food Security, which has found the frequency of extreme disaster events, it has risen significantly over the past 50 years. So this fact or this report you can quote in your the mains answer, that actually gives authenticity as well as increases the weightage of the answer. So one should actually make note of these facts as well as examples as value addition for answer writing. So here is a news that is actually related to the Criminal Procedure Identification Act that was passed in the year 2022. Here the news is center is going to introduce DNA face matching systems at police stations across the country. This will be implemented under this Criminal Procedure Identification Act. So let's study what are the features of this Criminal Procedure Identification Act. According to this act, it gives a legal sanction to the police to take the physical as well as biological samples of convicts as well as those who are accused of the crimes. So this includes not only the convicts, it even includes those who are accused of crimes. So according to section the 53A of the CRPC, police can actually collect these data. So this lists various the kind of data that includes biological, physical, including the fingerprints as well as handwriting, the signature, as well as even the behavioral attributes, as well as iris and retina scan. And any person who is detained under preventive detention law will also be required to provide the measurements to police. And you need to remember that the NCRB, the National Crime Records Bureau, it will store, preserve and share the data, and this data can be stored up to a period of 75 years. We should remember this fact, which is very important for the prelims. It is the NCRB that stores the data, and it is stored up to 75 years. And also it aims to ensure the unique identification of those who are involved with the crime, and to help investigating agencies to solve the cases. So this law gives enormous powers for the police as well as NCRB to collect the various data from the convicts as well as accused crimes to establish the the personal identification. And the next news is related to the food labels will have a QR code to help the visually disabled to know about the ingredients in the food packet. So the FSSAI, Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, that has recommended a QR code on the food products for accessibility by persons who are visually disabled. So according to FSSAI, ensuring inclusive access to information is a fundamental right for the citizens. This comes under Article 21, which is actually implicit. Article 21 that talks about right to life and liberty, which also includes right to access information. Also, FSSAI, under its Food Safety and Standards Labeling and Display Regulations 2020, it has outlined the information that has to be included on the labels of food products, which includes the product name, shelf life, nutrition facts, vegetarian or non-vegetarian logos, ingredient list, allergen warnings, as well as other product specific labeling. You need to remember this fact because sometimes UPSC, out of curiosity, it will ask you what are the various the labels which are included on the food packets. So you need to go through these and revise, so that you will remember these for a longer period of time. So this information, it empowers the visually challenged for informed choice while selecting the food products. And also under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, that recognizes the rights and needs of individuals with disabilities, that emphasizes on accessibility as well as promotion of health for persons with disability. Thus, FSSAI has emphasized on enhancing the accessibility and incorporate provisions that facilitate easy access to nutrition information for visually impaired the individuals. So for that the FSSAI has recommended the effective way to include the QR code on product labels. So these QR codes actually encompass comprehensive details including the ingredients, nutritional information, allergens, as well as manufacturing date, as well as the expiry date, allergen warnings, as well as the contact information for customer inquiries. So this news you can actually use under the GS2, where we have a topic known as the vulnerable communities, as well as you can quote this as an example for a inclusive policy, as well as an example to empower the specially abled people. And the next news is about artificial intelligence that will help the construction industry that is facing several of the challenges. This you can include in the science and technology, as well as how technology aids in the development of a nation. So here the AI, several of the technologies such as artificial intelligence, 3D printing and robotics that will help to transform the construction industry. Presently, the construction industry that contributes to around 13% of the global GDP, and it is expected to grow in the coming years at an estimated CAGR. CAGR is nothing but it is the it is compound annual growth rate of the 11%. So to meet this growth, we need a technology that helps in the construction industry to add value for the various stages in the project, from design as well as financing, operations, as well as business model changes. So this AI driven contribution can help to increase the productivity of the industry from present 1% to about 1.5% annually. So, and presently the construction industry faces various problems such as labor shortage, aging workforce, as well as fewer skilled laborers, and cost overruns, as well as project delays and poor project management, inaccurate cost estimations, design changes, as well as unforeseen site conditions and lack of workers safety. So these are several of the challenges that are posing the construction industry. Thus the artificial intelligence and 3D robotics, various technologies, they can help to reduce these challenges. So that's all about today's the Hindu news analysis. Thank you very much.